As you're watching this video, it's actually the Dragon Boat Festival here in China. Here's wishing everyone a safe and peaceful holiday from Amanda. Some of you might already know that one of the most iconic traditions of this festival is dragon boat racing. But what if I told you ghosts race dragon boats too? Sorry, that suspense was kind of ridiculous. Anyway, in this episode, I've got 3 creepy stories for you, all centered around lakes, water. I'll be telling them in the first person, and I hope they bring a chill to your hot summer day. A quick note about this episode's jump scare warning: it's a bit special this time. In the second and third stories, the warning will pop up before scenes involving deep water, lake monsters, and giant shadows. So if you've got thalassophobia, megalophobia, or claustrophobia, when you see this icon appear, you might want to cover your eyes. When I was little, I lived with my parents in an old house in a small county town. There was a narrow river behind our house, and on the other side of the river was a busy commercial area, always crowded with people. Because of that, I was never afraid to sleep alone, even from a young age, until that night. It happened one winter night. Half asleep, I was suddenly jolted awake by a burst of noise. Listen more closely, I realized the sound was coming from outside the window. Drums beating and people shouting. Huh? Who plays drums in the middle of the night? Curious, I ran straight to the balcony to check it out. It was a bitterly cold night, and the clothes hanging on the balcony were nearly frozen stiff. I didn't think much of the contradiction at the time, just leaned over the windowsill and looked out at the river, and sure enough, there were 2 dragon boats racing down the water, side by side. The rowers beat on drums and shouted as they paddled in unison. The riverbank lit up brightly, packed with people cheering and watching the race. It felt so vivid, so exciting. Soon, I was completely drawn in. Just as I was about to excitedly cheer along with them, something strange happened. Just in 1 second, the shouting stopped. Everything went completely silent. Even the people in the boats froze. And then, all at once, they turned their heads and stared right at me, every single one of them. What did that mean? Did I disturb them? But I was too young to feel scared. I just stood there, staring back, not knowing what to do. After a while, since nothing else happened, I got bored, climbed back into the bed, and went to sleep again. That night, I didn't hear the dragon boats anymore. But the next morning, when I woke up, my head was pounding. I had come down with a high fever. Maybe I had caught a chill standing on the balcony, I thought. Afraid my parents would scold me, I forced myself to get out of the bed and go to school. But by the afternoon, I was completely out of it. I could barely stay awake. So I left early and went home. Coincidentally, my parents weren't home that day either. They had gone to the hospital to visit my grandfather, so I was home alone. I had a quick dinner, then went straight to bed. About half an hour later, I vaguely heard the door slam, something like a bucket tip over, and then footsteps moving through the house. Maybe my parents were back, so I didn't pay much attention, just rolled over and tried to go back to sleep. But then things started to feel off. That footsteps were getting closer, coming straight toward my room. And they were heavy and quick, and it didn't sound like just one person. It sounded like a whole group of people stomping toward me. That was when I fully woke up. Could my parents be arguing again? I turned around, ready to check, but then froze. There was a man standing right beside my bed. He was tall and skinny, looked pretty young, and was dressed head to toe in black. His face was pale, expressionless. And just as I turned around, he was leaning over me slightly, staring straight at me. I was terrified. I thought the burglar had broken in. So I didn't dare move, not even look at him. I squeezed my eyes shut and pretended to be asleep, hoping he'd just steal whatever he wanted and leave. But as I lay there, I started feeling worse. My head got heavier, my eyes wouldn't open, and I could barely breathe. Then slowly, everything went black after that. When I woke up, it was already the next day. My parents were at my bedside, looking panicked. They said my fever had gotten so bad, they rushed me to the hospital to get IV fluids. I immediately told them everything about the man in my room and the dragon boat race the night before. They looked at each other, confused. My dad said, "That's impossible, sweetheart. You must have been hallucinating from the fever. When we got home that night, everything in the house was perfectly normal, no signs of a break-in, and nothing was missing. And dragon boat races? Totally out of the question. That river dries up every winter. There's no way anyone could race a boat in it." Yeah, maybe the fever had already started that night. Maybe it was all just a hallucination, so I tried not to dwell on it, even though the whole thing had felt way too real. Soon, I got better. I thought the whole thing was over, but after that, in the middle of the night, I'd always hear someone calling me by my nickname, over and over. It was a man's voice,
Amanda.
Someone I didn't recognize,
Amanda.
speaking our local dialect.
Amanda.
The voice would drift in and out,
Amanda.
sometimes close, sometimes far,
Amanda.
always coming from just outside the balcony. I told my mom, but she just tried to comfort me, saying things like, "You've misheard it. It's not for you." Still, she looked serious and warned me, "No matter what happens, don't answer." She never told me why though, and not knowing made it worse. My imagination ran wild. Eventually, I got so scared that I crawled into bed with them. Then one night, I stayed up late chatting with my parents. Just as we were talking, the voice came back,
Amanda.
faint, ghostly, like it was brushing against the edge of my hearing. But again, I was the only one who could hear it. That time, I broke down and started crying uncontrollably. My dad finally realized something was seriously wrong. She tried to calm me down, then went straight to the balcony to check. My dad used to be a military scout. His eyes were razor sharp, and at that moment, under the pale moonlight, he spotted something that shook him to the core. There was a dark, twisted figure slithering along the bottom of the riverbed. It was crawling, inch by inch, dragging itself upward, heading straight toward us. But who the hell would be playing in the river in the middle of winter? Given everything that had happened, my dad snapped. He stormed into the master bedroom, grabbed his old shotgun, and fired 2 warning shots into the river. The sound shattered the night. Even the fiercest ghost would have flinched. And just like that, the shadow vanished. Still, just to be safe, he put on his rain boots, took the gun, and went down to check it out. He searched the entire area for half the night, but didn't find a thing. Not even a single footprint on the riverbank. However, maybe the shotgun had angered the dark figure, because after that night, I started hearing the voices more often. In the end, just to be safe, my parents set up a small bed for me in their room. From then on, those terrifying whispers were drowned out by the comforting hum of passing cars outside. For the first time in my life, the sound of traffic actually made me feel safe. Later on, by chance, we heard something shocking from a neighbor. A lot of people had died in that river. Back in the day, our town used to host dragon boat races there every year during the festival. But one year, there was a terrible accident. One of the boats crashed into the bridge pillar, capsized, and 2 people drowned. After that, the town stopped holding races altogether. Years later, a dismembered body was found in the river. A couple had killed a young guy from out of town who was having an affair and dumped his body into the water. It was summertime then, and the river was deep, so the remains disappeared without a trace. The case wasn't solved until years later, and even now, they've never found all the bones. A lot of people say the other world isn't all that different from ours. They've got banks, cars, cell phones. People still go to work, hang out, have fun. So I guess Maybe the ghosts were also celebrating the Dragon Boat Festival, having some kind of team building activity. Honestly, that's kind of sweet. If we're really doing our jobs even after we die, then hey, when we all meet up in the next world, don't forget to follow my channel. We'll sit down, grab a ghostly cup of tea, and gossip about what the livings are talking about us. It was the summer of 2005. My mom took me on a trip to Changbai Mountain. Tagging along was one of her coworkers with her husband and kid. Back then, Changbai Mountain wasn't fully developed yet, so there were lots of privately run rafting spots. Naturally, we wanted to give it a try. By the time we got there, it was already 6 p.m., and the sun was starting to set. The owner waved us off, saying it's too late and not safe anymore. But my mom's coworker wouldn't let it go. She asked how long the whole thing would take. The owner said about an hour. She figured we had enough time, so after some back and forth, she managed to convince him to let us go. Just as we were about to set off, a group of male tourists arrived. They used their numbers to bargain for a group discount, then tearfully headed out. Seeing that, the coworker got upset and demanded a discount too. The bargaining dragged on, and by the time we actually got ready, it was already 7 p.m. The sky was visibly getting darker now. The owner tried to stop us again, but we ignored him. Figured he just regretted giving us the discount. No hesitation, we put on the life jackets and handed all electric devices, then off we went. We rented 2 inflatable kayaks. I was with my mom in one and the coworker sat with her son in the other. At first, the water was shallow and the atmosphere cheerful. We kids were splashing each other with paddles, everyone laughing, totally forgetting the time. After what felt like a while, the sun was nearly gone. The coworker said, "It's probably been an hour. We should be close to the end now." But none of us had any electronics, so no one knew the exact time. That's when I started to feel uneasy, like a bad thought just brushed past my mind. I whispered to my mom, "Let's pick up the pace. I want to reach the end quicker." So we started paddling harder. As we moved along, the forest grew denser. The towering trees blocked out the sky like a massive curtain. In what felt like an instant, darkness completely swallowed us up. Fear crept in, clamping down on me. The coworker must have felt it too. She quickly paddled over, grabbed a small rope attached to our kayak, said, "Let's stick together, don't split up." From that point, we drifted forward practically blind, feeling our way through the dark. My mom and I kept poking ahead with our paddles, but it was like the darkness had weight. Thick, pressing, almost suffocating. I was sweating all over my back. We don't know how long we kept drifting like that. Suddenly, we heard voices up ahead. We lit up with hope. Was that the end point? No. Turned out, it was a group of male tourists who set off before us. Once it got dark, they were too scared to keep going. With no phones either, they decided to stay put, hoping someone might come rescue them. Seeing them there made us all feel a little less afraid. We started discussing what to do next. The guy said they started to think they'd taken the wrong road, but since we showed up, their doubts vanished. So we might as well just keep drifting forward. The river would eventually lead to the end. Then we lined up and floated downstream in a row. By now, night had fully fallen. Trees loomed like shadows, sometimes so close we thought we'd hit them, but then they just blurred past like ghosts. Besides the soft splashing of water, everything was dead silent. Suddenly, a huge dark shape appeared ahead. Maybe a tree, maybe a cave entrance. It loomed closer, giving off this heavy, suffocating feeling. Then we heard a loud bang, and one man up front suddenly shouted, "Yeah, there's no way through there. It's a dead end." Turns out, he had slammed right into a tree, and because we were all so close together, the rest of the boats rammed into each other. In the chaos, someone shouted, "Hey, I dropped my pedal." "What? Your pedal? Let me grab it." Why is this water so deep? That got our attention. We all started poking at the water with our paddles. Sure enough, there was no bottom. I glanced down, but it was too dark, I couldn't even see the water. Just an occasional silver glimmer to remind us of the danger below. Slowly, our boats began drifting again. Maybe someone up ahead had found a way through. Before long, the narrow river seemed to suddenly widen, and I could vaguely see boats all around me. Everyone picked up speed after that. The water suddenly buzzed with movement. My mom and I held tight to the sides of the boat. Every time something brushed underneath us, we panicked, afraid we'd capsize and fall in. We just kept drifting and drifting. Who knew how long passed? Suddenly, a chorus of gasps came from up ahead. I looked up and realized we were inside a huge cave. The space around us opened up massively, and the sound of rushing water became louder. Someone yelled, "Where the hell are we? Did we force our way through after the main road got blocked?" But no one answered. All we could hear was the roar of water, drowning out even the sound of paddles. I don't remember much of what happened next, because after entering that cave, I was so terrified I just clung to the edge of the raft, buried my face against the rubber side of the boat. That smell, the rubber, was the only thing reminding me I was still safe, still alive. I don't know how much time passed, but then I felt my mom wrapped her arm around me. I looked up and light hit my eyes like someone ripped off a blindfold. There, on the riverbank, 3 police cars were squeezed together, red and blue lights piercing through the darkness. Some officers were on the phone, others unloading boxes, and a few were setting up rescue equipment. On the shore stood a few shirtless men, panic etched across their faces. "They're here! They're coming out!" Then, a man carried me ashore. That's when I realized I had no strength left in me. I turned to look back. The dense forest behind us framed the river like a dark gateway. The water flowed silently, shimmering under the moonlight. It was beautiful, but it contrasted so sharply with what we had just gone through, it almost didn't feel real. Soon, we pulled ourselves together and headed straight to my mom's colleague's car. The adults were chatting and laughing, celebrating our little adventure. Everyone seemed cheerful. Everyone except me and the other kid. We didn't say a word. Later that night, we returned to the hotel. Once the tension wore off, sleep hit like a wave. We all passed out almost instantly. Somewhere during the night, I had a dream. In the dream, I was still on that river, drifting in the same rubber raft, surrounded by pure darkness. But I knew I was dreaming, so I forced myself to open my eyes, to wake up, and when I did, I saw the colleague's son sitting up on his bed, silent and still. He was already wearing his jacket, so I asked, "Hey, want to go to the bathroom together?" He didn't respond, but as soon as I stepped out into the hallway, I heard him follow behind me. Thank God, the hallway was bright and warm. It helped chase away the fear from that dream. I turned around and saw the boy. He looked so pale, like he hadn't snapped out of it yet. So I asked him, "You okay? Feeling better?" But then he said something that sent a chill through my whole body. "How much longer till we get there?" What? What do you mean? We're already here. We're back at the hotel." He didn't answer. He just walked into the bathroom to wash his hands. But the moment I heard the water running, the fear came rushing back. Then he said it again. "We're not there yet, right?" And at that point, I realized he was mentally broken. He was stuck in that river, in that darkness. I didn't see anything, just took him by the arm, led him back to the room, and whispered, "Go to sleep. When morning comes, we'll be there." That night, I slept soundly. I don't know how well he slept, but for the next 2 months, me, someone who once won second place in the district swimming competition, I couldn't even take a shower. The sound of running water at night would make me freeze in fear. I know what you're thinking about. Yes, I wanted to yell at them too. So go on, let it out. I mean, weren't the grown-ups in this story acting even more reckless than kids? From insisting on going rafting so late to celebrating like nothing happened afterward, it's just, wow, totally irresponsible. But this story ends kind of open, doesn't it? It really makes you wonder, did they ever really make it out of that forest? Or was everything afterward just some kind of hallucination? Still, I think the more realistic explanation is that the kid, he was seriously traumatized, mining therapy after that. And if you look at it from a spiritual angle, maybe part of his soul got scared out of him and left behind in that forest. That's why he kept asking over and over, are we there yet? I've got a nephew who used to serve as a medic in Xinjiang. Toward the end of his service, he was suddenly reassigned somewhere else. After that, he became really hard to reach. Maybe just 1 or 2 phone calls a year just to say he was safe. But every year, he sent a ton of money back to his parents. He didn't return until 2008, and when he did, he was missing a leg. The guy was completely different, like the light had gone out in him. We rushed to ask what happened, but he just gave a bitter smile and waved us off, like he didn't want to talk about it. After a while, he started to bounce back. While recovering at home, he finally opened up a bit. Turns out, he'd been transferred to a research team doing all kinds of classified stuff. As for details, he couldn't talk about them, but he did share this one story. One time, they got a mission to investigate a certain lake. This lake had already been confirmed to host some kind of large creature. Their task was to collect samples, and if possible, tag the thing. To keep the mission under wraps, they went in disguised as a tourist group. They drove a van through winding mountain roads and set up camp deep in the forest. Once night fell, they assembled their gear, a mini submarine. The little sub was simple but solid. It was about the size of 2 office cubicles, powered by high-energy fuel. Just one canister, about the size of a fire extinguisher, could run it for 24 hours. It wasn't fast though. There were 4 of them. After resting that night, they launched the sub the next morning. One guy piloted it to patrol the area, and my nephew monitored everything from an inflatable boat, ready to jump in if anything went wrong. The lake water was super clear and not that deep, maybe 50 or 60 meters, and you can see lots of fish and shrimp clearly too. So they were already wondering how something massive could even hide in a place like that. That first day, 3 of them took turns in the sub, scanning about 10 kilometers in total. They found some strange signs, like suddenly everything went dark overhead, followed by a strong wave that knocked the sub off course, but no actual monster sightings. That night, they moved the camp a bit further and planned to keep working the next day. But on the second day, before they could dive again, some forest rangers showed up. Probably worried about fire hazards, they asked them to leave. Technically, at this point, the mission should have been cut off, but no one wanted to give up just yet. Eventually, they decided to stay one more day and take their chances. Maybe it was a nurse, or maybe the interruption just threw off their rhythm. Before the sub went in the water, the pilot forgot to swap in a new battery. So, less than 2 hours in, his lights and oxygen systems suddenly cut out. He had to surface right away to get some air, but the people on shore didn't know what was going on. They saw the signal go dead and then him popping up and assumed something bad happened. So my nephew and another guy quickly hopped in the boat to get him. They didn't get far, just about 50 meters, when something slammed into their boat. It flipped instantly, and my nephew was thrown straight underneath, trapped beneath it. After struggling for a while, he finally managed to pop his head up, gasping for air, and looked around. By then, his crewmates were already clinging to the sub. As he started swimming toward them, they suddenly began waving frantically and shouting, pointing at something behind him. He turned around, and not even 25 meters away, something the size of a bus engine was floating just above the water. A massive head, bumpy like a toad's, with eyes the size of wash basins sitting right on top. It had huge gills on either side, flaring open and shut, each the size of a car hood. His blood ran cold. He didn't dare move a muscle, just floated there, staring. Luckily, the monster didn't move either. It just stared right back. Unbelievably, even at a time like this, his teammates were still thinking about collecting samples. So they quietly maneuvered the sub around to the back of the creator. Then one guy on top reached out with a long sample spear and tried to poke it. But the monster reacted instantly. It heard the sound, spun around, and the weight from his massive body knocked my nephew flying. Then, it opened its mouth and charged straight at the sub. That's when the gunshots rang out, 4 in a row from the shore. Maybe they hit it because the creature dove underwater and vanished. Luckily, they managed to grab a sample, a piece of scaly fish-like skin, about the size of a human palm. But they also got in trouble. Some villagers had noticed their presence and filed complaints, claiming the creature was some kind of guardian spirit and nobody could hurt it. But after that mission, my nephew stopped doing those kinds of tasks altogether. As for what the lake monster really was, he never found out. Actually, there have been reports of such monsters in many lakes across China, like the Kanas Lake Monster or the Tianchi Heaven Lake Monster. People have claimed to see dinosaur or snake-shaped shadows moving under the water. Several research teams had gone to investigate, but so far, there hasn't been a solid explanation. Personally, I think these lake monsters are probably some kind of giant fish. Maybe a prehistoric species that's still around today, huge in size, very elusive, and that's why we haven't officially recorded them yet. So, are there any lake monster legends in your country? Feel free to share in the comments. I'd love to hear about them. Next week, we'll hop back on the Amanda bus and head to Zhengzhou to explore a haunted building. So, I'll see you next Saturday night. Don't miss it.